Radio every Monday night from 8 p.m. in the Spotlight, featuring people from all walks of Dominican life, spotlighting their triumphs and tragedies, dreams, hopes, aspirations, untold stories, touching the human and personal side of what we do in politics, religion, sports, business, music, culture, the media, and more. Getting to know our farmers, our public servants, youth, and the ordinary Dominican. Listen to their stories. No limitations, no restrictions, no holds barred. In the Spotlight will also spotlight interesting topics, issues, and relevant situations. Don't miss In the Spotlight on Q95 FM Radio every Monday night from 8 p.m. In the Spotlight.
(8:12) is the time in the studios here at Q95 FM Radio. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the In the Spotlight radio show with your host, of course, Fidina Frampton. It's not often I say my name on the program. Sometimes you figure everyone knows who you are. No, not necessarily. Always think about that one person who may be tuning in for the first time. It is a pleasure to be here for another In the Spotlight radio show. And remember, we complement the radio with a tripod, a phone, and we link this to social media. So you will find it on the In the Spotlight radio show official page. You will also find it within the group, the In the Spotlight radio show fans group, and we have quite a few folks in there, over 2,000 of you, 2,200, and we're seeing our numbers increasing as time goes by. We want to invite you while you're here as well to support our YouTube channel. It's Fidina F. Frampton. Go across and subscribe. We also welcome whatever support you would like to give to the show, and we have our Cash App and Mo Banking and contact number pinned to the Facebook Live. So if you go there and you would like to make a contribution to the show, you just let us know. Or we also welcome via MoneyGram or Western Union. But just check out the number, send a message, and we will take it from there if you would like to use one of those options. Let's extend some acknowledgements before we begin this evening. We want to thank our previous guests for the year so far. We had Simeon Joseph, who really started us off with a bang, and then we had Tamara Lowe, who followed, and tonight we have the legend, and you better give me the right to call you a legend this evening. His name is Ken Richards, an international Dominican journalist. We also wish to extend thanks to Q95 FM Radio for allowing us the opportunity to be here every Monday night to do this program. It really means a lot to me and to the fans, to the viewers and the listeners of the program. We acknowledge as well Josephine Gabriel and the Company Limited. They are the agents for Barefoot Wine and the Twapito Water. So thank you so much for your support. We acknowledge Jordan Jerome, aka GK. GK, good evening to you. Thank you for your support. Akim Lowe, we appreciate you for doing such an excellent job with our flyers each and every time. Dominica News Online for posting our flyers on their websites every time it's available to them. So thank you for that. And we want to thank again tonight Old Stone Grill, the old Grand Old House, for coming back on board at some point, you know, before Hurricane Maria. Old Stone ensured that me and my guest had dinner after the show. So thank you, Old Stone. Old Stone will be providing us with dinner after the show. So thank you for that. And I just want to give them a little big up. They are the best. They have the best broth and best roti, and they are the best place to dine in Dominica. You can give them a call at Callaloo Restaurant for lunch at 615-7549 and 276-7341 at the Great Old House. Thank you so much to you guys for giving us some support, and I'm excited for that because we had that at one point in time. And to be fair to the proprietor over there, you know, he has for sometimes been saying to me, whenever you are ready to start, I am ready to start with you. And so we decided to start tonight. So I didn't want to message my guest to ask him what would you like, so I figure I'll take fish for him because just about everybody eats fish. So I hope he eats fish. All right, 17 minutes past the hour. Good evening once again to everyone, especially the fans of the program. If you're tuning in for the first time tonight, you know, we're really, really happy to have you join us. And we hope occasionally, you know, when you have some time, you will take the time to tune into the program or catch the replay on one of my social media pages, one of my platforms. So thank you to the fans, to the viewers, and to those who contribute occasionally to the show. Just in the week past there, I got 2 persons, you know, who made donations to the show. So thank you. You know yourselves, and, you know, please continue to support. And I hope others can come on board and support us as well. 18 minutes now past the hour. And I'm not going to say hello to Ken as yet. I'm going to do something just a little different. You know, I really want to start the show off with a bang. And I know that this is going to make him smile a million smiles.
Captain Ken Richards. He'll understand why I call him Captain. Ken is my great friend.
Neil.
But I'll speak first of all as Ken the trainer. Many people don't understand that Ken Richards is one of the most patient people you'll ever come across from a professorial standpoint. So I joined the BBC at age 22 from the Caribbean, and Ken was my trainer, let's put it that way. I would give Ken my scripts when I wrote a news story. I'd say, Ken, have a look at this, what do you think? And he would take out his Parker pen. He always had a Parker pen. And he would say, Castle, come, young man, sit here. Let's discuss this script. Why did you put this paragraph here? Why not put it there? Why not delete this line? Ken would go so far as to write questions for me when I was about to interview Caribbean leaders, world leaders, that sort of thing. His training was invaluable, incalculable. I'll forever be in Ken's debt. Any university who want the finest broadcast trainer should make sure they have Ken Richards on their staff. So skilled is he at explaining broadcasting. It's not just the rudiments, you know, the technical skills of how to write a story and how to do journalism. It's his ethics, you know, and he would say, we can't take that personal. Yes, you know, the interviewee said so-and-so about you, but we will be magnanimous. And so Ken takes a magnanimity to his work. When I joined the BBC, I had so many fantastic, bright, grand ideas, full of energy. And Ken was my ultimate support. He would make sure that whatever fantastical idea that I had, that he would be right there, ensuring its success and that it is grounded in proper journalism and broadcast reality. We did an AIDS song contest together. I'm not sure if he remembers that. I did many documentaries. I went around the Caribbean doing documentaries. Ken was my editor. His job was to make sure it was cut properly. In fact, Ken is one of these guys who taught me how to use a reel-to-reel machine. I'm talking to you from a studio looking at one of these old relics. No, he was great as a trainer, as a journalist, as a writer, as an interviewer. I'll tell you this, Ken is a great pan-Caribbean man. He likes to think broad about region, about regional issues. And so he's the one who taught me how to look not just at Dominica, St. Martin, St. Vincent, Grenada, and so on, Jamaica, but to see how the Caribbean connects and how the stories intersect and how we're all one people and how we're going into one destiny. And the Caribbean owes Ken Richards a great debt of gratitude. And so it is because of all of this and a whole lot more why I will say that Ken Richards is a legend, a broadcasting legend. You won't hear that from him, he won't say that, but he is one of the finest broadcasters to have walked through the Caribbean, through the BBC, and many younger journalists, myself and others, will forever be grateful to him for the way he trained, for the example he set. I'm going on a bit, but I'll give you an example. So, to be at the BBC, you need to be very strong and confident and so on. And personalities can clash from time to time. Now, as I said, Ken and I are great friends. But occasionally we will clash over some story or whatever. And Ken will come back the next day and say, you know, Neil, yesterday I said X and Y and Z. And upon reflection, you were right and I was wrong. The magnanimity that I learned from Ken Richards. Don't take it personal, Neil. It's journalism. This is the job. It was amazing. Ken knows how to have fun. So he taught me how to see the fun side of the work as well. So as a journalist, as a broadcaster, as an interviewer, as a reporter, as a mentor, as a guide, I'm going to tell you this. I'm one of the most fortunate men who have lived because of Ken Richards. Because Ken made sure he downloaded all he knew, all he learned, all his mistakes, he downloaded to me with holding nothing in reserve. Many journalists, much older, could look at a young man and say, you know what, we're not going to hand over all the keys to the car. Because, no, but not Ken. Magnanimity, greatness. As he learned, so he passed on. And then, here's the best thing I got from him in closing. Confidence. When Ken Richards gave me the green light, and if Ken Richards said, Neil, this is good stuff, Neil, this is great work, you should be proud of yourself for this, there's nobody else who could tell me anything. Because my friend Ken said, young man, your presenting skills are good. I admire you for this. Go forward and go and prosper. When you have some people who I'm always smiling because, you know, really I'm getting emotional talking about this. But Ken Richards is one of the greatest people to have come out of Dominica. And I'm not even exaggerating. This is no hyperbole. And for the work he's done over the years, I for one am proud to make sure he gets all his flowers now. Thank you, Captain. Thanks for everything. Have a great evening.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Neil Nunes, and he is a
who is married to a Dominican.
Is he married to a Dominican?
To a Dominican, yes.
Okay, let's make sure we got our mics open for that. Former colleague of Ken Richards, and is currently a newsreader and announcer on BBC World Service, BBC Radio 4, and BBC Radio 3. Ken, after Neil sent me this voice notes that I asked him for so kindly, and he was over the moon to share, he said, if it's too long, Please forgive my apologies for going on and on. If it's too long, please edit it. And I said, no, every word you said is important. And I decided, I decided that I wanted to start off with Neil. Because when I heard Neil, it's almost like I could say, okay, let's end the program now. We do not need to know anything more from Ken Richards. His remarks about you were quite powerful, and I felt, oh wow, this is a Dominican. This is a man that I may have spent some time with at a radio station at some point in my very earlier days, not probably doing the direct writing, but at least I think presenting, I think is what I did while you were there. And I said, you know what, I know him. He's my friend. Good evening again, everyone. Ken, how did it feel to hear Neil speak about you on that level?
Well, now I know why he's calling me captain. No, but Neil is a guy who wanted to get somewhere. He was actually working at PJD2.
That's in St. Martin.
Yes, in St. Martin. And he would follow BBC Caribbean programs and BBC programs in general very closely. And he kept on touching base with us because he wanted to work at the BBC. And I remember one of the programs, we used to do special programs at around Christmas time. And one of the programs I came up with was to have an interview package at the end of the year. Interview in terms of all the producers who had done interviews for the year. I would go through them, and that was a lot of hard work. Go through them and pick the best of the lot and put them together. And we had about 5 or 6 producers. So the 5 or 6 best interviews and so on, put it together as a Christmas package and play it for the region, the Caribbean and so on. And Neil was just sold on that program. We used to stay in St. Martin and say, man, that was so good, I want to be there and so on. And he finally got to the BBC.
At age 22.
Yeah, and I mean, he's one of the news readers that people admire.
He has a beautiful voice.
Yeah, he did go through some problems because, of course, he's Jamaican and he has his Jamaican accent in his pocket, right? But when he started reading news, some people had comments to make. Some British people had comments to make in the newspapers and so on.
Oh, yeah, that far?
Yeah, it went that far. And all we were telling him is, man, don't worry. You have the talent, develop it, you will do it. And now everybody says Neil is the best thing.
Yes, yeah. And I am truly grateful to Neil for sharing with us. I have another one that I'm going to play before we actually start talking about Ken, and I think you're going to like this one as well.
Good evening, listeners. I was asked by Frederick Frampton to say something about Ken because I had at one time been head of the Caribbean service. But I want to talk about Ken not as a boss, but as a friend and a colleague. Ken is one of the most honest people you will ever meet in your life. Let's talk about him as a person before we talk about his work. Ken is one of the most honest people you will meet in your life. If you mess up, Ken will tell you you mess up. If you do something wrong, Ken will tell you you do something. If you're in big position and other people frighten you, Ken will tell minutes ago in your time, you were the guy who were there 15 minutes ahead of time. Very meticulous, very good at your craft. And we sat side by side from each other in the Caribbean service for many years. And we used to have what we in Ghana call canalize. We used to be going at each other. If you walk in the room of the Caribbean service, it's a small room, you wouldn't know that Ken and I were good friends if you heard how the tour was carried on. You would swear we were enemies, but that's how we used to carry on. I think they call it the common moving. That is how we used to carry on. And Ken, I'll just conclude by saying that you had asked me on Facebook some time ago to do something, and I got distracted, and I ended up probably not doing it. You know how forgetful I could be, so I hope you will forgive me for that. Do you remember the time we made year-end review programs and I lost my tapes? I hid my tape away so well that I lost them, and you had a good laugh at me. So I hope that you guys do justice to paying tribute to this famous son of Dominica, at whose house I stayed in 2012 when I visited Dominica. So it was my pleasure to say a few words about Ken. There's a lot more that I could say. 95% of it flattering, 5% of it unflattering. But this is radio, and at 3 minutes and 30 seconds, I've spoken for long enough.
Tell me about this gentleman, Ken,
Orin.
and his thoughts he shared.
Orin. And he was right, he's very forgetful. And not only the tips, he actually did his program and he hid them because it was some days before it would be broadcast. And he couldn't find it. We were working one night and he took out his wallet and he put it on the desk. And I took it and I hid it. And he was going mental looking for his wallet. In the end, I gave it back to him. But that was alright. You would forget a lot of things. But really good journalists. Really, really good journalists. And most of the guys who were there, and including Marie Claire as well, really good stuff and so on.
Okay, so seeing that you just mentioned Marie Claire, then I have to play a little something from Marie Claire too then, before we get into our talk.
Not just us in the Caribbean service. There is so much more that I could say about Ken, but time doesn't permit. So I just want to say thank you, Felina, for the opportunity to share my thoughts on one of Dominica's finest journalists, and to publicly say thank you to Ken for being such a shining example to me and to so many other journalists in Dominica and across the Caribbean.
Marie Claire.
Marie Claire.
Yeah, and she mentioned about me encouraging her. She was actually working with Khan at the time, presenting television news and so on. But we had a lot of guys at the BBC, and when they came up with that vacancy, I sent the information to Marie Claire. I sent it to another lady, a Jamaican lady, who had worked with us at the BBC, but she was back in Jamaica. A few other people I sent it, because I just felt, yeah, we have enough guys there, we need one or two.
Let's balance it off a little.
Exactly. And she applied and she got the job. You know?
And from what I'm hearing from Neil and Marie Claire, in particular, is that you were never reluctant to help. You were very giving of your knowledge and your experience.
Can I explain something to you?
Please explain, Mr. Richards.
I got a lot of help along the way, you know, so I had to pass it on. That was, you know, and a lot of people who came there to work as interns, yeah, I held their hands and tried to make them, you know, develop the best that they could.
And they're certainly grateful, because it seems that you contributed to what they've become, you know, today. So, Ken, I really wanted to get these, and these are from the perspective of the BBC, BBC Caribbean, and whatever else that you all did at that level. And what I found in trying to get these voice notes for the program tonight is that everybody was very eager to share. I did not get not one, boy, I'm not so sure about that, you know. Everybody was like, sure, Ken. And Neil started typing a whole set of things for me, and I'm like, okay, Neil, I need that in a voice note, you know. So that in itself already says the mettle of man that you are, especially as it pertains to your job, your career as a journalist. Welcome again to the program, Ken Richards. I'm going to allow you the opportunity, because we've not done that, to say hello and good evening to all the listeners and viewers.
Well, I feel good being here, and of course I'm glad the listeners and the viewers are with us, and I'm hoping we'll have a good night.
We are going to have a good night, Ken Richards. So we have to first get to know the person. So we've heard quite a bit, so that already gives us a sense of who you are. Some of us know you personally, so we already know who you are. And I'm going to give the listeners and viewers a little joke. So I visited Ken on Saturday to do you know, just a short video, intro video, and I was starstruck, you know. I kid you guys not. So I held the camera, and Ken just opened his mouth and started talking, and I just started laughing. I just better, because for me it was, oh my God, you know, I mean, I'm not supposed to be starstruck, Ken, because I know you.
Well, some of us are.
And you know, I was like, oh my goodness. I threw you off a little too, actually, in doing that. So even for me, you know, as someone who know you very well, I'm proud of who you are, and how you've gone out there and represented Dominica, because that's what you've done. You've represented Dominica. But let's get to know a bit more about you as we continue this conversation here on the In the Spotlight radio show. And again, to thank everyone for tuning into the program. So let us understand first, Ken, a bit of your background. Nous savons c'est Jalapoette. I don't know if you're originally from Port Michel. Ou pas Jalapoette.
Ou c'est bon Jalapoette.
Ou c'est bon Jalapoette. Tell me about your background, coming from Point Michel and somewhat of your lineage.
Yeah. Basically, I grew up with a whole set of different people. My grandparents a grand aunt who really took me in hand and was very good with me. My dad, Martin Richards, and his wife Georgie, who was my stepmom. They both have passed, you know. I didn't know my mom. I didn't know my mother because when I was 6 months, she joined the Windrush Gang.
Aha.
So she went to the...
She went to England.
Exactly.
From the Windrush.
Exactly.
Yes.
I actually have 2 sisters in England and a brother. My mother's children as well.
Okay.
You know, but in Point Michelle, I had a lot of homes to stay. My grandparents, my dad, my aunt, and so on. So they used to call me two spatu or whatever you call it, that kind of thing. But I was blessed. I was very blessed because I had a lot of people who cared for me, a lot of people who loved me. I had a stepmom who was good, totally good, really, really nice lady. And she took care of me as though I was her children. There were several times when she would tell her children, the others, "You're not saying who can do that, you have to do it too," and so on. You know, so I felt good, I was in good hands, you know. In terms of
But before you go ahead, I do not want to dwell too much on the element of your mom. So you're saying your mom left when you were 6 months old.
Yep.
And you never...
Oh, I didn't say the rest of it. She died when I was 7 years old.
Ah.
In England.
In England.
So I saw her as a baby, I figure.
Yes.
Right? But I don't remember that. So I really didn't know.
You have no recollection of who she is because you were a 6 month old baby.
Exactly.
And she never returned within that time.
No.
Never returned.
And she died actually. So never got to see her. Even when I went to London, I couldn't see her because she was gone long ago.
She was already gone.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
But did you get to meet your siblings though?
Yeah, man. I spent 16 years in England. Yeah. Linda is the eldest one. Yo-Yo is the other one. And I have a brother called Roy.
Okay.
He's Roy Richards, but we're not the same father.
Okay. Oh.
And we're not related by father, right? It's the mother factor.
Yes.
We have the same mother.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so you've met you've met your siblings, and you spent time with them, and you got to know them.
Yes.
Could they though tell you much about your mother? Because they maybe would have been younger.
Not only they, but an aunt of ours who raised them and who they call mother, because she's the one who really took care of them and so on. Yeah, she told me a lot about my mom and so on. And there were 1 or 2 people in Point Michelle who went to school with her, who were her friends, and along the way they told me stuff about my mom and so.
Anything that they tell you that anyone told you that you do this like your mother, or you look like your mother, or did you get any of that?
Well, we look like the family, we look like all others. So I know I look like her, my sisters look like her, you know, so yeah.
Okay. So good for you. At least you, as you said, you had a good network in terms of people who cared for you and who took care of you. Tell me about a little bit more about them.
My dad, he was very much into music. So he had a whole stack of records. It was vinyl at the time. One of the things he used to do when he got his salary at the end of the month, he would go buy, is it CBs? He would go there to buy records. And the only person, I don't know why, but the only person he would bring with him was me. So he would go and buy the records and I would be right there with him and so on. And especially around Carnival time, he bought 2 LPs in particular, Sparrow and Kitchener. But he had all kinds of music at home. The only one he didn't have, which I found out on by myself, was jazz. But he had another country and western, he had calypsos, he had reggae, all kinds of stuff and so on. In fact, later down, we formed a little group. That was the first musical group that I was in. 2 brothers, 2 sisters. Richie was my younger brother. So Richie and I played guitar and we sang. And sisters Kathy and Christy, they sang as well. You know, and we called it the Richies because it's Richards kind of thing. So I wrote the songs and we practiced and we sang the songs. And we actually were going to play stuff in different places and so on. I think one of the interesting ones was at the Goodwill School where we performed there, where they had it. And Richie and I now, because we were guitarists, we actually were playing for Ophelia in different places. Yeah. In the beginning, yeah. When Ophelia started, she was playing in little restaurants and that kind of thing. And Richie and I were playing for.
Good stuff. Tell me a bit about your childhood in general, Ken.
Childhood was good. I had a dad who was very strict, who wasn't very good about telling you he loved you. But the stuff he did told you that, you know, he had your back. One of the things he used to do, I was pretty good in school. So sometimes I came out first in the class and so on. And I would always be rewarded. When I got a scholarship to go to secondary school, I think it was the eighth scholarship in the whole list. And he bought me a brand new bicycle. And I was over the moon.
That was a major, that would have been a major reward in this time.
I was over the moon because, you know, I know how to bicycle to ride all over the place kind of thing.
Yes.
So yeah,
that was almost like giving you a car, you know, in this time.
But it wasn't a car, it was my car. You know.
So childhood was generally good.
Yes, and I had a lot of leeway. My aunt Amelie, I spent a lot of time with her. I grew up with her. She raised my dad, and when he became a big man, she grabbed me and she raised me too, and so on. And very nice lady. Sometimes, well, there are a few times when things happened and I was really angry. Little boy, you know, rude little boy, you know. And I don't remember what it was, but I was really angry and I went in the bathroom and I held the fist basin until rocking it and so on. And she heard. She heard. She came and she said, look, go downstairs and get a frozen joy and go and spend some time by your grandmother. Yes.
She knew what to do.
Easily, very easily. Yeah. And when I came back the next day, I had to apologize to her because I was very rude.
Probably somebody else would have whooped you.
Exactly.
But she chose to go differently.
Well, yeah, she did something else too, you know, that I just have to mention. She was a very churchy lady. And my dad played cinema movies at Pondisham. He was the one, and Alwyn Badwill was his sidekick, but he was the main one playing the movies and so on. So he came, I was a little boy at the time, he came to Auntie Millie's and he told her, he has played Martin today, it was a very good movie. So he came to pick me up, to take him to see the movie, Sunday afternoon matinee. And she said, not over my dead body.
You're not going?
I'm not going. And my dad, who had a big mouth and who everybody was afraid of his tongue, he just had to agree. Left me there. Why do you think I couldn't go? Because I had a sore foot, I had an injury, and I didn't go to church that morning. So you're not going to church and you want to go to
matinee?
Oh boy.
It's happening.
She was a very lovely lady.
Yes.
Very lovely.
And I think she was being fair.
Of course.
With that. Because
I
if
tell
you
you,
can't
my dad couldn't do anything. He couldn't take me out of there.
If you can't go to church, why do you think you can go to matinee?
Yeah.
Yes. So overall...
But I cried like nobody's business.
Because you wanted to go to matinee.
Yeah.
Yes. But overall, what would you say was some of the important things that this aunt of yours taught you as a boy that you continue to replicate even today as a grown man?
The main thing I think is the obvious love that you give. When somebody has your back and they want you to do well, all the things they do make the story for you. And that was who she was. She was a very loving lady, you know, and she showed it all the time.
And she showed it to you more so.
Yep.
Yes. Yep. Let us talk about your days at school. School was where? Point Michelle Primary?
Point Michelle.
Point Michelle Primary. And then to
St. Mary's Academy.
St. Mary's Academy. All right. So I want to know from you what those days were like at St. Mary's Academy. Who were some of your friends? Do you remember some of your schoolmates at St. Mary's Academy?
Of course I do. St. Luke's School, the teachers were golden, especially Lambert Telemark. This man was just a fine teacher, and he had our interest and heart. He was one of those who would give you the stuff on your hand, especially spelling, if you were spelling wrong. But he really nurtured a lot of young Point Michelle people. Now, in terms of St. Mary's Academy, same thing. There was a teacher called Romel Lawrence. And, yes, and he was just too good. He taught us composition and so on, and he did a really good job. And he was also a singer. He used to sing. So he used to nurture those of us who liked singing as well, you know what I mean? And made us feel good about it. At Point Michelle, though, I have to say, I don't know if you know or if you knew Leo Williams. Okay. He was a young guy who played guitar, and he was a little older than me. And I wasn't playing any instrument at the time. I was singing at the time. And we used to have concerts at St. Luke's School. Recess time, he playing guitar and I'm singing, and a big crowd of kids, you know. And in the afternoon, after lunch, before the bell ring, we have another concert and so on. So I enjoyed that kind of thing. Going to St. Mary's Academy now, the second band that I got involved in, and it was a proper band, a big band. A lot of the guys, a guy called Wenceslas Banes, Alexson Severin, Curtis Brown, his nickname was Zwill, and so on. We were all at SMA, and we decided to form a band. And we hooked up with other guys, a guy called Colbert, oh Lord, and I don't remember his name, he's overseas at the moment. Another guy called Alex was the guitarist, and so on. And we formed a proper band, but we called it Weedies, and everybody's wondering.
You called it what?
Weedies, and everybody's wondering, why did you guys call this? The thing is, where we were going, you know Harry, right?
Yes,
all right.
of course.
Well, we were going to practice at Harry's home, and there was a drum set there in an old house there, with a big Weedies on it. Up to now, I don't know where that drum set came from. Initially.
So you named your band after the brand of a drum set?
The name that was on the drum set, we just took it, Weedies. And a lot of people put a different connotation because they thought we were into drugs
and marijuana.
Nothing like that. Nothing like that.
Well, that must have followed you guys.
Yeah, but we were playing very good music.
Okay.
And you know.
What kind of music then? Kadas?
Variety. Everything. And we played a lot of American music, we played calypso, we played spooge, we played a whole set of things. There was a band that was a lot more popular than us, though. Naked Feet. Naked
Feet. Tim Mura was in that band, right?
We were the two bands at the time that were vying with one another. But Naked Feet was always more popular than Weedies. Yet, one or two.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is the first time I'm ever hearing about Weedies in all the interviews I've had.
Well, I'm just going to tell you. One of the guys who was very supportive of Naked Feet was Alvin Knight. Because he came from the same area, the same guys blew with him and so on. And Alvin came to a concert where we were playing, and he said, man, you all can really play good music, you know. And that was coming from one of the biggest Naked Fit fans, you know what I mean? Now, Tim and I always have a
little banter.
To and fro, because he played for Naked Fit, he played lead guitar in Naked Fit, and I sang in Willis, and we had three singers, Ronnie Gist, I don't know if you know guys.
Yes, of course,
Gist.
That's my friend Kareem's father.
Right, and Ronnie went to SMA as well. Ronnie Gist, Alex and Severin, and myself. And what made us sometimes uplift ourselves, so in instance, used to play a grotto.
Right.
And when they took a break, they would give a young band to play. And a lot of times it was Wheaties.
Aha.
And when Wheaties started playing, you would just see the organ player shifting on the side. Because guess who would come and jam with us?
Who?
Fitzroy Williams.
Really?
I'm telling you. Fitzroy, and oh Lord, man. That was so fantastic.
I'm taking you back.
Fitzroy is a hell of a fella, you know.
Uh-huh.
One of the best musicians in Dominica ever. He would come and play with a little band.
It wasn't too small for him.
I'm telling you.
Or he wasn't too big.
I'm telling you.
To play with you all.
I'm telling you. Yeah.
So at the time, Ken, were you all still in school?
Yes.
Or did you transition out of school with the band as well?
We were still in school, and I will tell you something that happened with because I was at Pont Michel. I used to have to come down to town to practice and so on. So I would go to the home of Curtis Brown, Zwill. He was a bass man. We were very good friends. When we did our exams, you do your final exams, you want to get the result, so you go to SMA to get it. And when I went there, I was told that somebody picked up mine. And I was going mental because, come on, who would pick up my, you know what I mean, my results and so on. I have since found out mine was not the only one that was picked up.
Aha.
And you know who picked them up?
Who picked them up?
Zwill. Curtis Brown. And when I came to practice the afternoon, because I always went by his home before we went to the band house and so on, he said, Weedy. And we used to call one another Weedy. So,
oh my goodness. So how would you, wait, how would you know who is with which Weedies you're talking at this time?
No, we just called two of us alone down there.
Okay.
When I went to his home and so on, you know, I told him I'd never do that again. You know, I know you thought you were helping, but you got your result right away. You know what it was. I had no idea what my result was. You know, so yeah, that was something I always recall.
That wasn't fair to you.
But he thought he was helping.
He thought he was helping.
Yeah.
And so, as I was asking, in terms of the band, did you all transition from school into being a band, or did you die after school?
No, the band stayed on for a long while, but after a while I left.
Okay.
For the primary reason that South Stands at Pont Michel had regenerated itself, and Badwill was looking for a lot of young guys, especially guys in the village who might be looking for something to do rather than getting in trouble and so on. So yeah, I told the guys I was living, and they had a brand new trumpet there. I said, well look, I don't need money from you or anything, but give me the trumpet. And they gave it to me.
They gave you the trumpet.
Yeah. And I used that trumpet at Pont Michel to help a few guys learn to play trumpet and so on. In fact, I actually gave Ozzy to sing.
Yes.
I gave him the trumpet.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Because they were moving on and they wanted to make a band for serenade kind of thing, you know. So yeah.
9 o'clock already in the studios here of Q95. This is the In the Spotlight radio show. I'm going to allow Ken just to have a moment to have a sip of water, if he chooses to do so.
I will.
And while he does that, I am going to play this clipping, and then we continue when we come back.
Thank you for that, for the opportunity to honor my great journalist and mentor, Ken Richards, on tonight's program. I have not seen him in quite a few years, but I have never forgotten what a consummate professional, teacher and mentor he was to me and the rest of the news team at the Voice of the Islands Radio. Our team, including you, Fadina, and Mark Peltier, consistently prepared perhaps the best half-hour news program in the region, the VOI Evening News. Thanks to Ken's great professional example and leadership. He insisted on accuracy, balance, and depth, and as a young journalist, I could not have asked for a better start in the business. He taught me to listen and take responsibility for my errors because at the time I had a little bad habit of making excuses for a lot of things. So I was quite grateful for the confidence he showed in me when he recommended me for the correspondence job for the Caribbean news agency Canada on his way to joining the BBC Caribbean Report in London. It was always a great pride when I listened to him over the years. I would think to myself, I know this guy, I worked with this guy. I'm so glad you decided to honor him tonight. He truly deserves it. Thank you.
Hi, Fredina. This is Nicole Georges-Bennett, and I am so thrilled to be able to say good evening to you and to your listeners, and also to Ken Richards, who I still call boss after all these years because he was my chief news editor at DBS Radio when I was a junior reporter. So Ken has always, to me, exemplified professionalism. He has been an excellent news editor. He's always invested in training and teaching us youngsters, so to speak. And it was always a pleasure to serve with him. I say serve with him because he always made you feel like you were part of a team, and not that you worked for him, but you worked with him. And he was always very strong in teaching us the foundations of good journalism, especially being objective, and always taught me to make sure I was never compromising my integrity as a journalist. So I have always held that very close to my heart and always treasured the memories of working with Ken. So Ken, I just want to say it is wonderful to see you and to hear you on the spotlight, and I know you have a wonderful story to share, and you are continuing to inspire those of us who consider you a mentor even after all these years. All the best.
Good night, Shadina. Good night, Dominica, and the rest of the Caribbean, maybe the world by extension, listen to this program. I'm very happy tonight, Shadina, from where I sit, to join you in paying recognition to Mr. Ken Richards, a mentor, or my mentor in journalism and broadcasting for many, many years until today. I started this journey in 1988 at Voice of the Islands Radio, encouraged by Mr. Ken Richards, who was at the time the news editor. He quickly recognized I had some talent in production and encouraged me to help produce the Catholic radio station current program, or the program at the time called Weekend Catholic, and also another popular program, Political Spectrum. From there I moved on and started news with my friend under his tutelage again, Mr. Moses Raphael. We produced news at 6:30, 12:30, and 5:30. Always being told to get it right. It's not always about getting it first, but always getting it right. And the red pen across our scripts on many occasions to help us and encourage us to get it right all the time. I moved on and went on to study broadcasting, radio and television broadcasting in the United States. After this, after I graduated, Ken again encouraged me to come back and replace him when he was moving to the nation radio station, DBS Radio. After this, after DBS, he moved on to the BBC for many, many years. During that time, I also acted as a correspondent for the BBC Caribbean Report and Radio Antilles. Again, being encouraged by Mr. Ken Richards. So you see, Fadina, it was a long road for many, many years. And Ken Richards always encouraged me and, of course, gave me the right advice all the time. I'm not sure I always listened, but always encouraged me all the time to do it right. Ken came back to be my boss again in the 90s when I worked as the news editor of Mapping News. He returned from the BBC for a few years. He was my producer again at Mapping Television, where we did the popular programs like On the Fire. Again, he went back to the BBC, and I moved on to, of course, programs like The Hang. And I moved on and on and on and on, always looking up and listening to Ken Richards on the BBC, always aspiring someday to be like him. I don't know if I've ever come to that place, but I was always encouraged by his perseverance. Ken remains a no-nonsense news editor and producer, telling it always as it is. And what I am today, I may be very popular today, but what I am today, I give credit always to Mr. Ken Richards. He knew me from a very young age, maybe from Frisco. He always reminds others among us that it was there that I placed a frozen joy in my pocket. I'm sure you'll be laughing as we, tell that story again. But he always reminds, every time he has the opportunity to remind, his colleagues and my colleagues that it was Matt, known as Junior at the time, who placed a frozen joy in his pocket in the very, very early years. So again, I just want to join you for Diana in recognition or recognizing Ken at this hour. He deserves it. And I want to say that I would encourage him to, come back and train all the young people who think they've already made it. We still have a lot to learn. Ken Richards, take a bow this evening.
I'm sorry, he brought up the frozen journey.
We have to talk about it.
I have to tell you.
Tell me about that.
I was actually a teacher at the time at Central School.
Okay.
And teaching, Matt was a little boy at the time, teaching infants. And, we used to have lunchtime in these years. So you would go home and have your lunchtime. And when the bell rings again, you go back. So Matt was in my class, and everybody came in and trying to do a lesson with them. Matt is sitting down there crying. So I walked up to him. Yeah, I walked up to him and I said, "What happened to you, Matt?" He said, and listen well, So I buy my frozen dress and I put it in my pocket, and I'm looking for it now and it's not. I would never have said that if he didn't bring it up, but he brought it up.
The bloody thing melted.
Of course it melted. And he's looking for it now and he can't find his frozen dress.
He's crying. Yo, Matt, we have one on you. We have one on Matt.
But he brought it up.
He brought it up. You didn't bring it up. And you wouldn't have, right? He's looking for his frozen joy.
You can't find it.
And he cannot find it.
So big tears.
Big tears.
Yep.
Melted in your pocket, Matt. That's what happened.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. But so Ken, it didn't all start at Voice of the Islands Radio. It started before that. Before we get into the rest of the media element, the journalism element, when you left the St. Mary's Academy, you went straight into work. Is that what happened?
Straight into teaching.
Straight into teaching.
But I was teaching infants.
Maths.
And it was a little difficult to deal with that.
Right.
So in fact, after a while, I actually left the job. I left for a specific reason, but I don't think I can say it on air.
Okay, well, after the first program, when the guest told me that, you know what, I'm not sure that it's suitable for the ear, I said, go ahead. And then we got what we got. I'm not sure if I should take that risk.
No, I can I can
If
say,
it's not a bad word, yes.
No, it's not a bad word. But the thing is, I was teaching kids, and they tend to have to go to the washroom, kind of thing. As a student, I used to say I was going to the washroom, and sometimes I'd walk around the school instead of doing that kind of thing. So I had the same kind of mentality in terms of those little kids. That's not what they were about. So this little girl, Myrtle was her name, and so she actually died in the hurricane in Maria. She was from Louisiana. She was from Louisiana.
Myrtle?
Yeah.
Yes, I know Myrtle. Yeah.
So she wanted to go to the washroom, and she asked, and she was a very, very quiet child, not a troublesome child or anything.
Oh gosh.
But knowing,
I see what's coming.
That's why I didn't want to say.
She
just threw everything down on the floor, and she couldn't help it.
So is it that you told her no, she couldn't go?
I told her no.
Oh, Ken. Bad teacher.
And she let it down, all down on the ground.
She peed right there.
Not pee, no.
Number two?
She really had to go, and the teacher wouldn't understand that.
This teacher,
So after that, I said, look, I don't think I can handle infants properly. So I left. You left. Yeah.
And with good reason, I think.
I was a bad teacher.
You should have said that.
Of course I should have. In hindsight, of course I know I should have.
Yes.
But then I went back to teaching at the same St. Luke's. But I had 12-year-olds at that time. Okay. Those kids who didn't make it to the common entrance. Right. I had that class.
Okay.
And then I taught them music. I taught them electricity because my dad was into electricity and so on. So and I used to work with him.
So that was a better fit for you.
Oh,
because you were helping
much
teenagers.
There are big people walking around Point Michelle and they calling me sir. And people are like, why are they calling you sir? Those that didn't know and so on. Big people. I taught a lot of them. And one of them came up to me the other day. He said, I'm doing electricity in houses, and it's because of what you started in the school and so on.
Awesome.
So
because you were not only teaching them academics, but you were also teaching them skills.
And remember, a lot of them had failed.
Exactly.
So you needed to
lift their spirits.
Exactly.
Because
get them to do something that they feel good about doing it and can learn.
Exactly.
So yeah, we did that.
Well, maybe it was a good reason that you left the little children so that you could make a better and bigger contribution to the older ones. So I'm very good with that. And so from this, how long did you stay teaching and what did you move on to?
I moved on to, well, I don't know if I can call it journalism.
At the time.
I moved on to the Government Information Service. And Lennox Honeychurch was the press secretary for the Prime Minister, David Virginia Charles, and he was looking for somebody. So he put out a vacancy notice, and he interviewed a lot of people. Told me he interviewed a lot of people, and he picked me to do it.
Did he tell you why? What it is that stood out about you?
Well, I think he found out that he made the right decision because he was always praising what I was doing and so on. And I brought a bit of my music in that as well. So the theme we had for the program, the GIS program, I did an introduction for that.
The music?
The music,
yes.
And we were using that on the radio all the time.
Okay.
So yeah, I started at GIS. I don't know if I should tell you this one too.
Tell me. Tell us, Ken. Inquiring minds.
When I was a little boy, I used to think I want to be a photographer. But as I grew up, it changed. I want to be in radio. You know what I mean? And every now and then they would have notices at DBS. And I used to apply. And one of the times I applied, there was a gentleman called Ferdinand Frampton.
That's my dad.
Ah, it's your dad. I didn't know that. So he was interviewing people, and at the end, when he was finished, he told me, "You're one of the best readers we had so far." I didn't get a job.
You didn't get the job?
No, I didn't get a job.
So why didn't my father give you the job?
I don't know. You have to
You
ask
didn't
him.
ask him?
If you can go and knock on the cemetery and
I have
ask
to
him.
do that. You know why? So who got the job? Do you recall?
No,
During that time?
but there was another occasion when Gordon Henderson was the
General
manager.
manager.
He was the general manager, and they were looking for somebody for a Creole person this time. So Jamala, you remember Jamala?
Yes, Jamala Fontaine.
Yeah. Rudy
Joseph.
And Ken Richards. We were the three people who were shortlisted.
But Jamala from Grand Bay.
Yeah.
So, you know what that means.
So you think Jamala got in?
I'm thinking.
No, he didn't.
He didn't?
I'll tell you what happened.
Tell me.
It was, we don't well know. It was one of the hurricanes. I don't remember which one. And what happened is, I think it was 79. I think it was,
Okay, David then.
David, I think it was David. And my dad had gone to St. Lucia for his job. He was doing some training in St. Lucia. And our house, they galvanized, went sailing. And my dad wasn't there to fix it, you know, so I stayed to fix my dad's house. Rudy Joseph went to DBS to help them fix everything. Everything. Right? So I'm telling you, so in the end, there was no
hope for you, no chance.
You know what I mean? But I'll give you a joke about my dad's house now. People, the guys around Point Michelle who are into construction and so on, they actually were going from house to house to fix at least the roof, at least people's roof. And I kept on telling them, look, my dad is not there, can you take your time, wait your turn and so on. So, you know, I went up on that house and I put back all the galvanized. And when those guys came, they couldn't stop laughing.
Oh God, you made a mess of it?
I put, you know the little guttering when the water is passing down there? It was easier to nail the gap. So I did, and those guys had to come and take out all the galvanized and fix the house.
You didn't have patience then. And you could have well gone to DBS and helped DBS and still come back.
But there was a time I did go to DBS because Mikey Bruni was living at Point Michelle as well. And he came and he told me, man, let's go to DBS. I tell him all the roads blocked, wire, posts in the road. Man, we can walk. And we walked down to DBS, from Point Michelle. And Mikey was in his element. All night long, all morning. He's telling people what is happening and so on. So I was his sidekick. I was always his sidekick kind of thing, Yeah.
So somebody has got the first job. My daddy didn't give you the job, unfortunately. Second time around, Rudy J outsmart you. And
both me and Jamal.
So he got the job, I presume.
Yeah, Rudy got the
job. He got the job.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he got the job. So I ended up in GIS.
You ended up in GIS.
But the thing about GIS is, excuse me a minute, I think I'm getting a bit of a cramp, I'm sorry.
Really? No problem, no problem.
Yeah, so
that works for us too.
So yeah, while I was at GIS, I was also doing stuff for DBS. So I actually used to do Spiria Square while I was working at GIS and so on.
Okay.
Yeah. So while Felix would get his interviews and everything and so on, I was DJing in Creole and playing music and cat dance and everything because it was the cattest time at that time.
So it was a whole vibe.
Yeah. Yes. And then I started doing other things for DBS. I think Jazz Gold Wednesday night program.
I remember.
I did that.
Gold.
Yeah. And then I came up with a program called, oh Lord, what is it? Start something, you know.
I will tell you, it's somewhere there, somewhere.
You sure?
Yes, I think so.
Star Profile, I think.
Star Profile. Star Profile.
Yes, yes.
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 Yes, there it is.
Yeah.
Entertainment program called Star Profile.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that something like In the Spotlight?
No. It was especially looking for entertainers who are very famous and that kind of thing, and interviewing them, playing their music, doing a whole production kind of thing. Until one day, Alwyn Bully told me, look, I appreciate what you're doing there, you know, but you have Michael Jackson, you have this one and so on. We have people in Dominica too. Why are you not doing it? So I jumped into that right away. And it became a lot more
so
interesting because people were hearing us.
Yes.
You know,
yes,
kind of thing.
Yes.
But because it was easier to get information, I used to get magazines on entertainment people and so on, and put it all together and so on. But then I started doing local people.
Okay. I think that was
regional
important.
people, including Sparrow and so on.
Yeah.
That was very important.
Yeah.
I mean, Alwyn put me in the right direction.
Like Alwyn would.
Yeah.
Yes, like Alwyn would. So GIS, doing stuff on DBS. So when did the transition take place, or were there other things that you did during that time before moving full-time into DBS? Okay,
well, I have to give you the GIS story.
The GIS story. There's a story.
There is a story. Parliament at the time was still at government headquarters.
Okay.
At the top.
Okay. That's where Parliament used to be?
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Oh, yeah, that's where Parliament used to be.
Okay.
Yeah. And one day, they were talking, the Freedom Party was in government. And one day in the Parliament, they were talking about, because there was a town council election about to take place in Portsmouth. And they were talking about, the government MPs were talking about all what Freedom Party had done for Portsmouth and what the Labour Party had not done for Portsmouth. So Alan Carbon came to the office, the GIS office, and Charles Avram, who was also, I think, a senator at the time, came and they said, look, you know, we said this in the House and so on and so on, and you have to write stories on it and so on. So I told them straight to their face.
Oh boy.
Told them straight to their face. I can write every single last thing you see the government do for Portsmouth. You will not get me to write not a piece of a word about what the Labour Party didn't do for Portsmouth. I am working for the government.
That's correct.
I'm not working for the Freedom Party, you know, and that took me to Dame Eugenia.
All the way up.
Oh, they went to complain to Dame Eugenia. Ken is there and he doesn't want to do the work he's supposed to be doing and so on. So Dame Eugenia told Mr. Shaw, who was the cabinet secretary, she wants to see me. So I dive in right away. When I came, she said, I'm not ready yet, Richard, and so on. You know, when I'm ready, I'll call you.
Okay.
So I went on vacation. I took my leave and I went on vacation. And I went to Montserrat. And I went to Radio Antilles. And I spoke to Rose Willock, who was in charge. And I told her, I'm looking for a job at Radio Antilles. She said, where have you worked? I said, I am still working in GIS and so on. And I knew exactly what she was going to say. We're not hiring people from GIS because they're usually not.
They're unbalanced.
Exactly. Exactly. So I brought other stuff that I had done, right? And showed it to her. And they offered me a job.
They did?
Of course. So I went back to Dominica, went back to my job, and Dame Eugenia finally called me into her office.
Was about to ask, did you get to meet with her?
Yeah, she came and she said, so Richard, what is that I'm hearing you say you don't want to do, you know, the work and so on and so on. So I explained exactly to her what I said to them. She said, but I don't understand you, Richard. And
slower. She would have probably said it a little slower.
Maybe. At the time Reagan was the president of the United States. She told me, but when Mr. Reagan does something, right? The press secretary reports on all of it and so on. I went to a nice smile. I said, Miss Charles, when Mr. Reagan is leaving, the press secretary is leaving with him, you know. Are you suggesting that, you know, if the Freedom Party leave, I don't have a job? It's not the Freedom Party I'm working for, Miss Charles. I'm working for the government.
The government.
And I did the government's work. I did all the stories they were saying that the Freedom Party was doing for Portsmouth because of the government. You understand?
Yes.
I can see what the government is doing, but I wasn't going to say anything about the Labour Party not doing anything. Because the opposition, I'm not working for the opposition, I'm working for the government, and that is what I did.
So even from there, your principles...
But listen now, I told Miss Charles, because remember I told her I had gone to
Montserrat, and you offered a job.
I told her, Miss Charles, in any case, I'm leaving, you know. Boy, the lady smiled.
You joking?
I'm telling you, no, but I knew exactly what she was thinking. Where in Dominica you'll go and get a job, and I cannot put my hand on you kind of thing. I know that is exactly what she was thinking. So when I told her I was going to Montserrat at Radio Antilles, her face changed.
The smile disappeared.
And do you know how I know that with Miss Charles a bit? When I was working at Voice of the Islands, they had the government had the reunion year when they were bringing every month a leader from a Caribbean country. And she came to VOA with the, I think it was the Belizean Prime Minister. And your dad, who was working at VOA, was showing them around. I was in the middle studio doing interviews for the news and so on. And Miss Charles came in there and she told the Belizean Prime Minister, this is Ken Richards. He used to work for us, but he just left us and so on. I said in my head, oh boy, that...
It bothered her. It bothered her. It bothered her.
You know what I mean? For her to come back and say that.
She remembered it.
Yeah, I moved to Antilles and I left Antilles because my wife stayed in Dominica and told me the loan you're looking for to build a house, finally, the bank gave you. So I resigned from Antilles.
So you did move to Montserrat?
Yes, ma'am.
You went to Montserrat,
yes,
and you stayed there for how long?
I stayed there for about 3 months.
About 3 months?
I tell you, the bank say I get in the money to build a house.
So you want to build your house, so you have to come back to Dominica?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
So you come back to Dominica to what job, Mr. Richards? What job do you come back?
I'm telling you.
That is where you ended up at VOA.
They were just, yeah, and I knew they were going to do that too, right? But even though that wasn't going to happen, I had how many children? I had 3 children and a wife. I had to build a house for them.
Yes.
You know, so
Is that the same house I visited?
The same house you visited, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you came back to Dominica.
Yep.
And hence where Voice of the Islands radio started.
Voice of the Islands, and we had people on the newsroom like the same Raphael Moses you heard.
Yes.
Father Chaplin was there. You know who was there anyway because you were there too.
Yes,
and
I was there as a little child going to sixth form college at the time and coming in.
Well, you were learning.
I was learning. I was learning. And I think Voice of the Islands really was a really nice experience. Yeah. And even then, Ken, based on what Matt and Moses shared, it was a Catholic radio station. Who would think a Catholic radio station would be focusing on a major news and looking for the balance and all of that? But you came in, and what was your thoughts?
Well, the thing is, those guys hadn't been in news before.
Right.
Matt hadn't been in news.
Right.
Chaplin, Raphael. So I had to hold their hand. Carol Belvey too was there as well. Hold their hand and teach them what we're doing, that kind of thing and so on. And we were doing really good stuff. When it came to the news,
Voice of the Islands.
Voice of the Islands didn't have money. They didn't have money.
I remember.
But we had talent.
Yep.
And we used that, and it reached a stage where, of course, DBS called me.
Yeah,
and
because
said,
you were outclassing DBS even then with
We
your
were,
news packages.
and they asked me if I wanted a job with them and so on as a news editor, and I said yes, of course, because I had children to feed.
Yes, and I do recall at the time that the salary wasn't much. You know, even for my father, leaving what he was doing at the time, because my father at the time worked with Paul Green, I remember that very well, making quite a bit of money. I never for the life of me understood why my father left that. Making quite a bit of money.
He always liked radio.
I know, but making a lot of money at the time. He was going to the country doing sales, so he always got provisions and people always gave him stuff, so we were never in want for
a sacrifice for his faith.
In Voice of the Islands, let me tell you, I think my father maybe was making quarter of what he was making at the time.
Oh boy.
But you know, it's a chance he took, and it's something he loved, and that just shows how much my father truly loved media and broadcasting, because he made that sacrifice, knowing that he was not going to have the amount of money that he had before. But you know, he was approached, and I guess the same applied for you, that the money would not have been anything significant to help you to take care of an entire family.
Okay, let me tell you one little thing at VOA. I have a daughter called Shariana.
Yes, I know Shariana. Where is she?
She's in London.
She's in London.
Shariana was 2 years old at the time, and I wanted to do an ad, not an ad, a promo with her. 2 years, so she can't speak properly. I took her to the studio, in the production studio, and I said, what I say, Shariana, repeat it, I'm recording. I say, she said, I said, love. She said, love. I said, VOI or VO, whatever it was. But she said that one, VOI. And then I edited it together. She couldn't say I love VOI because she was only 2 years and she couldn't see. But I did it, and everybody was listening to this thing and saying, "Boy, that's so good." A little child and say, "They have no idea that it was edited."
Yes.
Yeah, because she couldn't say the sentence.
She could not say the sentence, and at that time it was reel to reel. It was reel to reel, so you had to cut and tape and edit. I remember. I mean, those experiences are priceless, to be quite frank. So you decided, hey, I have a family to feed, I have my children to take care of, I have a mortgage, because by then you would have had your mortgage, you need to be able to pay your mortgage. So DBS says...
But that time, that time too, Peter Richards used to do Canada in Dominica.
Okay.
When he left, Mikey was doing it, but Mikey was always busy. So Mikey asked me if I could do it. So I ended up being the editor at DBS. And doing kind of wire service and the radio service. So I had kids to feed, like I was telling you. So I was doing 3 jobs really at the time, And all along I kept on monitoring the BBC to see what would happen, And there was a guy, a British guy.
So you had interest in the BBC?
Oh, a long time. But let me tell you, there was the guy who was in charge of the Caribbean service, Hugh Crosscull.
Hugh Crosscull.
I always admired this guy because his ethic and the way he went about doing things and so on. I learned a lot from him, actually. And then one time, I was telling you the guy, the British guy, working in the embassy in Barbados. And what he told me, because he was finding out from me, what he told me is the BBC prefers to hire people in London once they can do the job. If they cannot find somebody to do the job, then they will look around in the region and so on. And in hindsight, I realized that Mikey had a serious hand in me getting to the BBC. Because Mikey was doing his lawyer thing, but he was in Barbados, And Hugh Croskell at the time was working for Canada. And Mikey, Hugh co-opted Mikey, and they were working together. And Mikey and I are best of friends and everything. So I am sure he's the one who spoke, because Hugh came out of the blue and called me one day and said, Ken, I've been following you around, you know, and so on, what the work you're doing and so on. Are you interested in the BBC and so on? I said, of course I'm interested, you know. And eventually they had a vacancy, and they told me they want to interview me, but they would stay in London and interview me in downtown.
Via the telephone.
Via the telephone. The thing is, though, about a few days before the interview was scheduled, I was changing a tire on my vehicle and I got a slip disc. So I never told them that I was sick. I couldn't lie down on the bed. I was on the floor in the bedroom when they interviewed me, and he was asking me all kinds of questions, asking me if I know what CARICOM is. How can I not know what CARICOM is? You know, and
you're news.
Really simple questions, you know. And I answered all the questions until and it was three of them, eh? The guy who headed the Americas region, Caribbean, come to under American region. So he, another person, and he was posing the questions. And then he gave me a last question that just floored me. He said, so something is happening, right? You have an emergency there. How do you deal with that? And so on. So I give him all steps of what I would do and so on, because we're accustomed to doing those things. So if there is an emergency, we do this, we do that, we do that. What else would you do, Ken?
What else?
Yeah. What else would you do? And I'm trying to wrap my brain there.
Wrapping my own brain.
And he said, wouldn't you alert management exactly what is happening? For Dinah, I just hit back, right back. And up to today, if he was here, he would be laughing at that joke. I told him, yes, I would do that, but after we do everything, because we are accustomed to doing stuff on our own here, because you know, and I just didn't think about bringing that up to mind. So he had me flat, but I got the job.
You got the job.
I got the job.
You got the job.
Yeah.
You were happy about that.
Oh, very, very happy.
How did that work out in terms of moving? Did you have to move first? Family follow? Was it the whole package? How did that work out?
I left the family in North Carolina. I went to London. Yeah, you know.
To settle in.
To
settle in.
To work.
To work.
To work.
Okay, so there was not the thought at the time yet to bring family as yet.
Oh, family was always forefront in my head, because I mean, I want to make sure they're okay. You know. So yeah, I had them on my mind all the time, but I had to develop myself with the BBC kind of thing, you know. And after a few years, I found out that the BBC has a program that they can actually get you to bring your family up to London, and they will pay for it.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's how I brought them up.
So that program truly existed?
Yes, of course. Yes, that's how I brought them up. But Malcolm stayed because I wanted somebody to stay in the house in Mount Baker.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you left your young son behind to manage that, to manage.
Malcolm was already a big man.
Ken, let us talk a bit about the experience. We will come back to BBC, but the experience at DBS Radio as the news editor, was it similar to being at GIS at the time, or did you have more leverage, more leeway to be fair and balanced, as we say in this business?
Oh yes, even at GIS, I used to try to be fair, you know, and I know not everybody was happy with that. You know what I mean? But I think, yes, of course, I was going to be fair. But the problem you had with DBS is you had some Freedom Party supporters who felt they can dictate what should happen on the national radio station.
Right.
So they used to call all the time and speak to the young reporters, intimidate those people, you know. So I don't remember if it was Mr. Maynard that I spoke to, but I told them, the government people, if there's a problem, you can speak to the editor. If you feel the editor is not good enough, you can speak to the manager. Charles James was the manager at the time, you know. But I don't want people calling those young reporters and intimidating them, you know. So that kind of worked. But we had another problem while I was there, because the cabinet called us in one time because they had some issues and some questions that they wanted to ask and that kind of thing. So they wanted the management circle to come. So Charles James, the general manager, he was acting at the time, Sherman was out at the time, John Rose, and Ken Richards, the editor. So we walked politely to government quarters, like good little workers and so on. And Miss Charles was not on island at the time. The acting prime minister was the man from the valley. You know who's the man from the valley? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And when we got in, they itemized a lot of the issues they had with us and with DBS. And
also you.
We sat down there. Well, the editor, of course. You know, and when they were finished itemizing everything they said, Henry looked at us and he said, "Right, we're very busy, and say what you have to say because the meeting has to finish." So I pull back a little and I say, "You see, that is the problem, you know. You all are ministers and you work hard and so on. You think we at DBS not working, right? You've itemized everything and you've given us a minute for us to say this, that, and that." You could have heard a pin drop there. Seriously, you could have heard a pin drop. So then, when we started on, we had a lot of things to say. So Charlie started, then John Rose, then me, and so on. And the next day, I'm doing the morning news, early morning news. So I called Brian Allen, the Attorney General, because I wanted a story from him. And I interviewed him. It's about 5:30 in the morning. And when the interview was finished, I said, "So Mr. Allen, are you one of those who's angry with me because of what I said in the meeting yesterday?" You will not believe what Mr. Allen said. He said, "Ken, so long we need a talking like that because we're getting away with everything." I'm telling you, this is what Brian Allen said. I thought all of them were angry with me because I'm rude and fresh and, you know.
Yes.
No, he was very happy. And he said, "Ken, keep it up."
Keep it up.
You know. And I was really happy to hear him say that.
What are some of your memories, before we move on to BBC in more detail? What are some of your memories from DBS? What are some of the stories that you recall vividly in terms of things to remember?
I'm going to give you 3 little examples. One was Vanus John Charles. Sorry, I'm a drummer sometimes. Yes. One was Vanus John Charles.
Vanus John Charles.
Yeah, with the Banana Corporation.
Right.
The banana situation was getting terrible. And people were very worried that the industry could fold. So I called Mr. John Charles to do an interview with him. And he said, "It's going to have to be off the record, you know, Ken." I said, "Yeah, okay, but I need to record what you're saying because I don't want to forget what you're saying," and so on. So we did the interview, and while we're doing the interview, he said the banana industry, that is it for it, the banana industry is dead. That is the chairman, So I said, well, you're saying that, I mean, why can't you say that on the record? He said, okay, man. I was recording, I was recording. He said, okay, man, do what you want. And I was lunchtime news, so I ran the story, the lead story. The chairman of the corporation is saying that the banana industry is dead. It don't take 5 minutes after the news for Vandals to call me and say, Ken, you killed me, man. What you do there, you killed me, man. Because the government people right away, as soon as they hear the news item,
calling,
they make a beeline for him. You know what I mean? And I said, but look, I asked you for permission, whether I could use it, and you said I could do what I want and so on. I felt bad for him. I felt really, really bad for him because I think they were going to choke him by the neck. Kind of thing. That was one. Another one.
Then he forgave you, I'm sure.
Yeah? I hope so.
You hope so.
Another one was when they had and Rosie Douglas helped organize the bus strike between Point Michelle, right up Kingfield and everything and so on. I was in a story for lunchtime and I called Ms. Charles about 11 o'clock. So Ms. Charles, I really need a government perspective on what is happening there. So I'll do it, Richard, I'll do it. Come back to me. So just before the news, I came back to her and she still hadn't
She wasn't ready yet.
She wasn't ready, So I ran the story from a Rosie perspective because he was the one who organized the thing and so on. And Ms. Charles called after the news and said, Richards, I'm the Prime Minister, and you're running a story like that. I said, Richard, how many times I tried to get you and so on. And the afternoon passed and she still hadn't, and she still hadn't give anything, right? She came to DBS at about 5:30, I think, and the news was at 6 o'clock. So I wrote the story very quickly, her story. But I had already done another story. And Rosie was the lead again. Because she came in too late. I couldn't do the story the way I wanted to do it.
And you could not report.
To put the government perspective. You had to put in the government perspective. But she didn't give us enough time to do this thing. So the next morning, the Prime Minister called me at DBS and she said, Richards, I'm the Prime Minister.
She reminded you of that again.
I am the head of the government, How can you run Rosie as the lead and so on? I said, Ms. Charles, all day long I was begging you, to put the story there. And you came at 5:30, not leaving us enough time to do a proper story. In the end, she said, well, we'll have to agree to disagree, Richards.
And I would presume you got her on the next morning. You got her on the next morning.
The story continued and so on, but it was interesting. And I learned something on that thing though. Not from the Prime Minister's perspective, from journalism perspective. Because I asked Camilla Bellot, who was also on the newsroom, to go and cover one aspect of the protest at Goodwill. And I don't know if you remember Ransom Coffee.
Of course, that's my bosom buddy.
He went with her. And when they came back, Ransom told me, Ken, Camilla was very worried, because they were throwing stones. They were throwing stones there, and I put
them
in harm's way. You know, I learned a lot about that from the BBC though, because they tell you those things, and I hadn't gone to the BBC,
yes.
you know, but I exposed them, you know, and anything could have happened to them, you know, so I have to apologize for that. But I learned something there. I learned something there because it was dangerous. It was dangerous.
Help us understand, Ken, what a journalist is from your perspective, and what are the rules that you, Ken Richards, work by in terms of a journalist.
A journalist has to be open-minded.
Open-minded.
For one. You have to know that there's more than one side of the story. You have to know that balance is important. You have to know that not being biased, and that is a big one. A lot of us sometimes try not being biased, but we still end up in some way or fashion being guilty of doing that. So you have to focus and get the story. And I mean, you know, journalism, get the story, whatever is the story should be at the top of the thing. There's the pyramid thing, especially for newspapers and so on. If you put the story at the bottom, and it's a long story, the editor comes and he cuts up what is at the bottom and what is at the top. If it's not the news you have, then you don't have it, you know. So you have to put, you should be able to do the news in one sentence, you know.
In one sentence.
And then fill it in with the rest of the information, you know, and write a proper story.
How do you decide what goes to the top? How do you decide on a
top,
headline?
The top is the story.
The top is the story.
Yeah, the top is the story. Because if you say something, if they're saying something and the story is right down at the bottom, even though the editor don't cut it, people may have gone their way, you know. So you have to, what is the story? You know, Funaina had a serious accident and she's in the hospital. That's the story. And then you put the rest of the information to balance it and that kind of thing. It's not as easy as I'm making it sound.
I know that.
You know?
Yes.
Because sometimes there's stories you have to really fight with them to put them in a proper perspective. In St. Kitts, I used to do, apart from the news, I used to do a program called The Bigger Picture. And it would be expanding whatever it is. So you get a lot of different views on that particular issue and so on. To let people think, you know, because you can have one view and you leave it as one view. It's not going anywhere. You know, you have to develop the thing, and you know. And I used to sometimes give Matt and Calais some of the bigger picture stuff for them to get on Q95.
Okay.
You know?
And so can those who learned from you, those who you taught, those who you helped and guided, why were you always so open, based on everything they've said, and I know you said it earlier on that others helped you along the way, but why was it important, even beyond expanding it then, in terms of helping people like Neil and Nicole and Marie-Claire, and making sure Marie-Claire was okay because she was in a new environment, and you know, why is it?
Well, I'll take the Marie-Claire okay first, because she didn't work with Hugh Crossell.
She didn't work with Hugh Crossell? No.
Hugh Crossell, apart from being a really great journalist, was like a family man, was like a father. So what Marie-Claire is telling you, I was asking her. This is what Hugh used to ask me.
I see.
I sit down there and you say, "You okay, man? Are you okay?" and so on. And I was telling him yes, because I'm okay, but he had that kind of concern. He was a father figure, you know, and one of the best journalists I've ever come across. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from him. In the end, he ended up in a difficult situation. He died, by the way, you know. I don't want to get into it,
yes,
but
right.
he got into a very difficult situation.
Yes.
So that was there. Now, when Oren said, sometimes you hear us talking and so on.
Banter, a little banter.
The
The
worst peacock of banter was Mike Jarvis and I, right? And Mike Jarvis is a big tall fella and I'm a small short fella. But when we start, we're not stopping, and we have our points and we holding our points, and we did a lot of that in the BBC, because every day we used to have a
But that's good though.
Yeah, of course.
That's good.
Because when we finish all our things, right, we're laughing at one another, but it was, in a lot of cases, it was looking at the stories and what angles and what perspective and that kind of thing. And we were all thinkers, so we always had things to say. And from that, you would get a really good program,
Let us zero it in to one of the voice notes that we shared. I don't remember who exactly. I think maybe somebody said that they think that, one said that you should be a university.
That was Neil.
Yes, that was Neil. But then there was somebody else who said that probably you need to help the younger journalists who think they know it all. And I know that people say that, as it relates to our young journalists in Dominica, or maybe some of the inexperienced ones. I'm going to ask you to be frank. What is your view on the state of journalism as it is in Dominica? What do you think is wrong? Two, and so that's two questions, and you should be able to remember those because you've done that all your life. And then the third one, is this something that you would be willing to come in and assist with?
Okay. A lot is wrong in terms of journalism in Dominica because I don't get the impression that there is a move to really help, especially young people, to develop that skill as a reporter, as a media person, as a journalist. So they're left fighting on their own. And you have the intimidation thing that comes from a political angle, that comes from other angles and so on. So sometimes it's very, and sometimes these people are in this thing because they're looking for a job. And it's not necessarily a vocation for them, and they have a lot to deal with. So, yeah, it would be good if they would get the proper training. But where the world is today, a lot of radio stations are actually folding, and those are not folding. They have a lot of shortcuts they can take. You know what I mean? And some of them don't even really need young people or other people to do stuff for them because they're bypassing those things and so on. So it's difficult. The world is changing, and you have a lot of technology that help, almost like robotic kind of thing. So yeah, it's very difficult. Now, in terms of helping, when I left of course, when I left the BBC in 2011, came down to Dominica, and I got in touch with the radio stations in Dominica and told them, look, I'm here, I'm not working. I can give you a week training, especially for the newsroom and so on.
Don't tell me.
Kyrie FM didn't take up the offer. Q95 didn't take up the offer. The only radio station that took up the offer was DBS. And I spent a week with them. And then some months later, one of the young ladies here at Kyrie said, Mr. Richards, didn't you ask for you to give us some teaching, some training and so on? I said, yes. He said, Mr. Gregor, Mr. Sheridan Gregor is now asking if you can help and so on. When you offered, no, they didn't take it and so on. That's what the girl was telling me, and it was true.
Yes.
It was true,
But is it something you'd be willing to do again? And I'll tell you this, that if there's one person I would like to team up with at some point to do something, I would be more than happy. So I would be happy to help with the presentation. I think I might be ready for that. But definitely, Ken, in terms of, your strength is the journalism, is the writing, and teaching.
You know what the problem is now?
Tell me.
I've embarked on my own radio station, which is an online radio station.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Every morning I'm sending the news thing for you, for you to check the news.
Carlisle sends it as well.
Oh, you okay?
Yeah, man. I
Yeah,
get
well,
it.
but that is.
But
that
I
is,
want you to tell more others about it.
Yeah, well, okay. When Win FM and I parted ways in August of last year, I decided COVID, I'm coming back to Dominica.
Okay.
But a lot of people used to stop me on the road in St. Kitts and say, "You're going to form your own radio station and so on?" And I just used to smile and so on. Came to Dominica, my youngest son Jared in London. So, Daddy, what you going to do then? I said, "How you mean? I'm 66 years old, you know. I can retire, you know, Jared." So he said, "You should start your own radio station." That is my youngest son telling me that. I said, "Well, you have the technical knowledge because he's into computers and so on." I said, "Let's do it. You set up the radio station and I will be the broadcaster." And this is exactly what we did. The server for that radio station is not in Dominica. It's in London.
Okay.
And I do the news here and so on in my bedroom, kind of thing. But the radio station is 24/7 and we play a lot of music. I love music, so I have all kinds of music in and so on. And 24/7, a lot of cadence, reggae, jazz, and everything, R&B, calypso, zouk, you know, and it's automated.
Okay.
Miguel Lamadi has one as well, but he's more advanced than I am, I think, because he actually has a DJ, I think, doing programs.
Okay.
Most things is automated.
Okay.
I have a lot of what I call info bites, interesting little tidbits and so on. Like, for example, now you have the election in Barbados. I put little tidbits. There's a regional program called Make We Talk.
Make We Talk.
Afi Mata is on that.
Okay.
Dwyer Stefan in St. Kitts is on that. The lady who runs it is Beverly Sinclair from Grenada and so on. But they tackle all kinds of you know, issues and so on. You can actually get a lot of news from that. So I tap into that as well and put stuff and so on. But the radio keeps me very busy because it's a one-man show.
Yes. So you manage it.
And I have to do I do the news 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or run it 3 days because I do it the day before, kind of thing. And the programming, the music, the information, all those things. I have to do that on a day when so my time these days is very limited. This is the point I'm making.
Well, I thank you for giving me some of your time. How can people access your radio station?
Hold on. Let me give you a card.
Okay.
I have cards that I give people.
Okay.
Yeah, so because it's online, you need the link kind of thing. So yeah, so that is it.
Okay.
I give people cards when.
So what I will do as well is on my pages, I will share the information to access the radio station.
Okay.
As well. So Ken, you know, I'm really happy that we touched a bit on the journalism aspect. By the way, congratulations on the radio station. I'm happy that we touched on the journalism aspect because this is what has really. This is what you're well known for, you know, for being very good at it, for being a legend. You know, one of the people who spoke about you referred to you as a legend in this business. And I think it's because you took it seriously. You respected people. You understood what your job was. You understood the assignment, like they say these days. And you did not, you tried your best to be fair. And that, I think, is so important in news. You know, tell me a bit about the BBC and the experiences at the BBC.
It was gold.
It was gold.
Because while you were working, you were actually being trained. And they had 3 specific programs. The first is a basic one. When you come, you do it. The second one is more advanced, and the third one is even more advanced. So while you're there, and you always get on.
So they train you?
Yeah, of course, of course.
So when you got there, you had to be trained?
Well, you have trained while you're doing your work,
yes,
kind of thing.
Okay.
You take a day or two and you go do the training kind of thing. So yeah, that was there. And the next thing is you come across a lot of people, a lot of journalists who are seasoned. Our Caribbean service was a little office kind of thing, but the BBC have a lot of different services for different parts of the world, and sometimes you run across those people and you exchange, information, you exchange stuff and so on. So that was all of that was useful. Just want to mention that when Neil was talking, he spoke about a contest that he and I did. That was when the BBC started looking at World AIDS Day on the 1st of December. Mm-hmm. They asked all parts of the BBC to do something interesting to make sure, you focus on the AIDS Day. So we had a meeting in the Caribbean service, and I told them, let us have a competition, a regional competition, Caribbean competition. Let people write about AIDS and so on. And we will give them prizes, we'll give them money and so on. They dragged their feet, right? So a week or two before the 1st of December, they want to know what the Caribbean service is doing. I told them, well, let us do the same thing I suggested, but because we've tagged on the time, let us do it only through radio stations. So we sent messages to all the radio stations we had information for, and so on. And you will not believe the number. From Dominica alone, I think it was it Kyrie FM? We had about 5 or 6 songs from them. We represented the radio station, right, kind of thing. St. Vincent, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the whole Bahamas, and so on. And then in the end, the one who won was a young girl from Reef Broadcasting in the either British Virgin Islands or the U.S. Virgin Islands. And a gentleman from Jamaica singing a reggae song came second, and St. Vincent came third. The thing about it though,
you were right about the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Yes,
that was the first person.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, yeah. The thing about it though is they left it to me, but in the end they asked Neil to help me, because it was a tough thing. You had to liaise with a whole set of people and so on. We got judges from we had to get judges from London, and thank God there's a guy called Jean Toussaint who is half Dominican, half Martinican. He's from his family from Point Michel and so on. He's a saxophone player and he teaches music in a university. So, and I knew him because I used to go to his concerts. So we got him as a judge. We got another pastor who knows music. We had 3 judges and so on. And we did a whole, when I say we were in me, but I incorporated them, did a whole thing about the who won and so on. We had 2 programs. And we toying with people on the last program. Who won? Who do you think won? And so on. And the first one, Neil and I voiced it. The second one, Mike Jarvis and I voiced it, and that was the winning one, kind of thing. So yeah, we made a lot of impact on that. Yeah, yeah.
BBC.
Mm-hmm.
BBC. Yeah. And then the Haiti project.
Yeah. Yes. That was very sad because so many people died in Haiti. Mm-hmm. So the BBC decided to do a special program, which they called Connexion IT. Making the connection for Haiti. And because they have an office in Miami, and because you have a lot of Haitians in Miami, they decided to do it there. So Marie Claire went up, and then after a week or 2, I think, I relieved her, and I was there as well. And yeah, we actually got an international award.
Yes, congratulations on
yeah,
that.
the BBC got and all of us who worked on that program, we're part of it, you know. So yeah, so Marie-Claire and I hooked it up.
So overall, good years at the BBC. And Tanya just posed a question there. This question, she says, is directed at Ken. What was the most challenging interview you've done in your entire career?
Wow.
And why is it your most challenging? Your most challenging?
I actually made a note of that, you know.
You did?
Yeah. It was Desmond Hoyt, the former president of Guyana.
Yes.
I think when I interviewed him, he was no longer president. But this man and I battled in that interview. He wasn't giving no quarters and I wasn't giving any either. We went at it. That was the worst one. And then the former Prime Minister of Jamaica, Edward Siaga, he had something he used to do. I would call him and he would answer and he would agree to do an interview.
And then not pick up when you call back?
No. We would do the interview. But while the interview was going, I posed a question that touches his soul a little bit. And he would hang up. This man must have hung up about 3 or 4 times on me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and the last time I interviewed him, I told them, look, I'm not going to take that. So I interviewed him. And what I would do, I would leave the soft questions first. I would go on them first because he was always... And when I came to the last one, the last question, he did what he normally does. He hung up on me. So I was the producer for the day. I went to edit that interview. And I warned the other producers I was going to do it. I ran the whole thing, including where he hung
up on you.
Yes. So the whole region of that. Yeah.
You're brave.
It's not a matter of brave. I mean, come on. You are a head of state, you know.
You
right?
have to answer to the people.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But he would do the interview, but always, when it came to the really tough question, he would hang up. So I ran the whole thing. Let the whole region hear the whole thing.
Did he fix himself up a bit after that?
I don't think I interviewed him much after that. You know? So
these are among two of your challenging ones. What about emotional ones? Ones that probably...
emotional came from Voice of the Islands.
Voice of the Islands.
That was when Mike Douglas was in a hospital bed in the United States. He called me to say, it is true what they say, he's very sick and so on. And he wanted to do an interview. And I did the interview on that evening. When we carried this thing, a lot of people, you know, found out that he was actually sick. But we went back a long way because Mike used to have in Parliament, they were going to make a move, they were going to boycott the Parliament, or going to, I don't know, he just had trust in me. He would let me know the day before. So I write this story before, and the day when they decide to move, when they're moving, the story going out at the same time. He would let me know what he was going to do in Parliament. Yes. You know?
That's trust.
Yes, a lot of trust. You know, but that was Mike. That was Mike. You know. Yeah. Oh, I had to say one thing too. BBC. Telling you the BBC was a nice place, and you know I enjoyed it and so on. I was actually reprimanded one time. You
were?
Yes, I was.
Oh my.
Yes, I was. There was a tribunal actually. Yeah, and I'm going to tell you what happened. The Vincentian Prime Minister, Ralph Gonsalves, there were a lot of accusations about him ill-treating women. I'm putting it in a nice way. And we've been carrying that story because different women were accusing him. And we've been speaking to their lawyers, kind of thing. But I was on the morning program one time, and I called Colin Williams, who I think was either the DPP at the time. Anyway, he was responsible for legal affairs and so on. And I interviewed him about a specific lady who lives in Canada, but alleged that she had been, and I'm saying allegedly, abused by the Prime Minister. So I interviewed Colin and ran the story, what he said that morning. He said the lady is lying because the date she says that happened, she was not in St. Vincent. Right?
Interesting.
So I ran the story, and then I called a lawyer in St. Vincent, the one I know that was representing the lady. And she told me, look, I will give you the lady's number and call her, because she has a side of the story too. And I agreed with that. Call the lady. And the lady told me, Colin said the day, according to her passport, right, that she said she was in St. Vincent and met with the Prime Minister. That was not the day. When I called the lady, she told me, the day I said, it's the day, but it's the wrong year. Right? Wrong year. Now, when you're doing the morning program, you have to give the evening program a heads up. So I gave them the lady's number and told them she's willing to be interviewed and that kind of thing. And Debbie Ransom, who was the section head, meaning the manager, said, look, this is a very touchy story, so you all can do the interview, but go to the lawyers. We have BBC lawyers who vet your stuff, make sure the BBC doesn't get into trouble and so on. So Marika was on the evening, I think, and she did the interview. And when I came in next morning, I realized they hadn't used the interview on the evening program. And she left a note telling me, the lawyers say we cannot run that story. That's me working on the morning. So I listened to the interview. And in the interview, the lady is saying what I said earlier. Yes.
Right date, wrong
right
year.
Date, wrong year. Right? So I sit down and I take that clip and I am writing the story. And all of our computers are synced with one another, right? So you can be doing something, I can say over and say. So I put in the story in the running order. It comes out.
Somebody removed it.
I put it again. I know exactly who's removing it, don't worry. I put it again, it comes out. I say, Ken, you better leave those people place, right? Debbie is in her office, right? She's not doing the morning program. She's there for the morning and for the day and so on. And I'm putting the story in there, and she's not coming to ask me a question.
She's removing it.
She's removing it. So take my jacket, take my coat, my bag and so on, and she coming in the main office and saying, I say, I'm sick, I'm going home.
You're sick?
Of course, I'm very sick, and I'm going home.
All right, you're not feeling well.
So she had to do the morning news. But she's lucky because I'd done most of the stories already, so she could just stick it and listen. So she went to the head of the Americas section and said, Ken is being disobedient and you know, because the lawyer said you mustn't use the story. So they called me and they asked me if I want the union to come and represent me. I don't know, I can represent myself. So we went, and the main guy who was doing the investigation, he says, but the lawyer said not to do this, not to carry this thing. Why did you carry it? So I explained to him, look, I carried a clip in response to what Colin said. The lady has a right to defend herself. they were very worried that Ralph Gonsalves would take the BBC to court. They had another scare with the then Prime Minister in Antigua, Weber, you know. So but that clip there was not. It's not putting the Prime Minister in a bad light. The lady is defending herself. You know what I mean? So when they asked me and I explained those things, the guy says, but why didn't you discuss that with Debbie and so on? I say, we always have discussions. This time she didn't see it necessary to have a discussion. You know what I mean? But I stand by what I put there because it was letting the lady's side of the story
be heard.
And she was not there in that particular section saying that, you know, yes, this is it. All she was saying is, look, I'm saying this is the day it was. I misrepresented the year, but I'm clarifying that now, you know, kind of thing. So they told me, well, we still have to, you know,
go with what the lawyer says.
No, we still have to punish you, you know, because not punish, not punish, right? We still have because and here there is because I didn't follow the directives of the manager of the. You know, I told the guy, how can I follow that directive, right? When my journalistic sense tells me, right? We carried one side of the story, and the lady has to have a side, and she's not, you know, libeling anybody there. Yeah, you know. So they said, well, in any case, we have to put it on. And what they did, they put a paper with the information, and they put it in my file, right? And it has to stay there for 1 year. And after the year, they take it back.
What's the point of that, like, really?
Well, they have to do something.
Do something.
You know what I mean? But there'll be an idea to get into a lot of battles. Because although the producers there were people with merit, a lot of them didn't necessarily want to upset the person who was managing. So it's Ken that always used to get up and say all kind of thing and so on, you know. And when she's not there now, they have everything to say, but not in front of her. But I wouldn't take that. So, you know.
Ken, quite an experience there at the BBC, and you served as news editor at some point.
I served as manager.
Manager, you served as manager at some point.
Yeah. And that wasn't something I wanted to do. But what happened? Hugh Crosker, who was the manager, he got a job at Algiers in Jamaica. He was going to be the manager there. In fact, he was telling me, let's go
with him.
I told him, no, I'm staying in London, I'm staying with the BBC. But the thing is, Debbie now was basically his second in command, you know. So obviously she should have gotten the manager's job. But Hugh was a fellow with big feet to feel. And what Debbie did is she applied to do a stint in another part of the BBC. So he didn't watch me. I think I was only there for about a year and a half already, you know. He told me, can I have confidence in you? You know, apply for it, man, apply for it. So I applied.
And you got it?
With other people, and I got it, you know. Yes. But it was a one-year thing, temporary thing. I did it for the year, and I think Miss Debbie Ransom saw Ken could do it, so she can do it.
She can do it.
Yeah. So when they came with the final thing, I applied, but my heart wasn't in it because I really felt that Debbie initially should have been the one there.
Okay.
You know?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Ken, we're almost out. Well, we're out of time, but we have a couple of things to just touch on. Quickly, family. We didn't spend much time talking about family, but talk to us a bit about your family. your children, and of course your wife. I know that might be a little difficult to talk about, but
I can talk about
okay,
it.
yes.
Susie.
Susie,
Yeah.
yes. Susie and Suzanne.
Yeah, she, in London, she was a teacher in London, but she had problems, diabetes problems. She had kidney problems, and she was in hospital a few times, getting better, and so on. I was actually I think I was in Antigua that time. I was working at Observer Radio in Antigua when Malcolm called me from Dominica and said, Daddy called Shariana. That's all he said. And I called Shariana and I couldn't understand what she was saying because
she was bawling, yelling,
exactly,
crying.
Exactly, you know. And she eventually got it out and so on. I found out Susie, you know, had passed. The people that observed were very nice. The owner, Winston Derrick, I told him I have to go and check my family in London and so on. Put me on a flight, first class. It was the first class. First time I traveled first class, you know. And I went, and all the kids were disheveled because their mom passed, and you know, crying and all kind of thing. So, but we managed. We managed.
Of course.
Yeah. And of course, I have 4 kids. Malcolm is the eldest. Lennox is the rebel.
Yes.
He's a very good friend to one of your brothers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's in London.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's been in London for a long while.
Okay.
When I brought the family up, he came up as well.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And then there's Shariana and Jared.
Yes.
Jared is my counterpart in the radio.
Yes. In the radio business.
And we have grandchildren. We have 6
already.
6 grandchildren.
Okay.
Malcolm has how many? Malcolm has 4 now. Shariana has 1. She don't like me talking about it, and she's about to have another.
Okay, well, congratulations to you, Shariana.
And Lennox has 1.
And Lennox has 1.
Yeah.
So you're going to be on 7 soon, as opposed to
if all goes well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Ken, you know, if you were to sum up your life, and most of your life in the field of journalism, how would you sum that up?
It's really been worth it, and worth it because you meet people sometimes who think the way you do and who have the kind of, you know, direction that you feel you should go. I worked in St. Kitts and Nevis. My boss was a gentleman called Clive Bacchus.
Not with the name?
Clive is Guyanese, but he spent over 15 years in St. Kitts and so on. And when I was at the BBC, he was our stringer in St. Kitts and Nevis. So you could say I was his boss then. When I was working at Win FM, he was my boss.
Okay.
So he never treated me like a boss. We were 2 colleagues, and he's the kind of guy who has the Caribbean perspective. And there are other people, Julian Rogers. Julian will not leave me alone.
He's one I would love to interview sometime.
You should.
Yes.
Julian made me come to Observer Radio twice. When I came down from the BBC in September, I went to Observer Radio because Julian was the manager, and he told me, come on, we'll do stuff and so on. So he wanted to replicate BBC Caribbean because it had closed by then.
Yes.
So he was looking for help from me, from Mike Jarvis and so on. I spent 4 years at Christmas come, I missing my family. I resigned.
Goodbye.
And I started working with DNO, with Tim.
Tim, giving Tim some support.
Editing, you know. I didn't have much money and I was struggling. I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. You know. But Julian,
your honesty, Ken, so much.
But Julian came back to Dominica again and he said, look, Ken, I really need you, you know, come back. So I actually went back, and I was willing to stay that time, but the owner, Winston Derrick, he died. And younger members of the family took over, and they had no idea what radio was. They fired a lady called Gemma Handy. She was the overall editor. I was the editor for radio. She was the editor for the newspaper and overseeing the radio and everything. And they fired the lady.
They fired her.
You know?
So and they had their own direction.
What they were doing, people were getting a lot of money. People like Gemma and I were getting a lot of money. So what they were doing is pruning the big bucks kind of thing. So when I found out, because they came and they said, Gemma is resigning. Now I knew that was not true, because the day before, Gemma and I had a meeting about how we can further develop the whole place and so on. What we can, you're not having that meeting today and you resign. Tomorrow. So we went, I called Julian, and a whole set of us went by her home, and she told us that, look, they brought her to a restaurant to give her breakfast or whatever, and they told her if she doesn't resign, they will fire her.
The Last Supper.
So you know what I did?
You resigned.
Of course I resigned.
Yes.
I resigned, and I went to St. Kitts at Win FM, kind of thing. Now Founding Gemma is back there at Observer now, but it's not the same people.
A different set.
It's a different.
Oh my goodness. Ken, we have to wrap things up on the program for tonight. I'm going to allow you your final comments as we wrap it up, and just thank you so much for being here. I had quite a fine time with you.
I enjoyed being here.
Yes, yes. Just some final words.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Because I think of the BBC, I really have a Caribbean focus, and I did work with Canada as well. So this is what I'm concentrating on these days. Okay. The news I'm doing, now and then it has a Dominica story, because Calais will make a contribution. But most of it is around the region, and I want to take stories that, not run-of-the-mill stories, but stories people will identify with, kind of thing. So this is what I'm doing at the moment. I'm battling with my health.
You are. You'll be fine.
I've been fine for a while. I've been fine for a while, so you know.
Because when I initially invited you, you were dealing with a situation, and then here we are.
I have a bad knee. I have diabetes. I have high blood pressure.
You'll be alright.
I have health. I thank the Lord for it.
Every day.
You know.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to wrap things up now on the program. I hope that you learned from Ken. I hope you enjoyed his story, his journey. Please leave him a nice, kind comment on the live. Just telling what you thought about the program, what you thought about what he shared. And we'll continue to encourage him and continue to support him, respect him.
Thank you.
And just appreciate him as a great Dominican, a legend, as was indicated earlier on in the field of journalism. He's a son of the soil. He will be and remain a son of the soil. We will be back here next week, Monday, God willing, for another In the Spotlight radio show. Remember to look out on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. I release the guest for the next program every Saturday morning. We have a set time now, so you can look out for that. Thank you to everyone who supports us. Don't forget to follow our pages, support us on social media, make a contribution to the program if you can. We do appreciate your support all the time. Good night, everyone. Thank you again to Old Stone Grill for providing us, with our dinner tonight. Appreciated. That is a wrap on the program. Until next Monday, good night, everyone, and thank you for your support.